And I bumped into a pair of musicians. It was a couple, and they said, we can't talk about the Ike stuff. We can't talk about the doctors that you have on your show. And I thought, you're musicians. I assume you guys talked about everything and across the spectrum. And they said, no, if we mention it, we just get shut down by everybody around us for these crazy theories. So they're obviously self-censoring. I now self-censor whenever I record myself because I'm literally worried about, everything being taken away. And there's a lot of people out there that worry about that. And it's not healthy, is it?
Oh, no. And, speaking of music and art, back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, it was conservatives that were wanting to censor artists, Madonna's videos and, rock lyrics that were allegedly corrosive to the youth.
Right.
So-called
gangster rap, right? The parental advisory for gangster rap, that was all conservative.
So that was more of a conservative supported form of censorship. So there's been kind of this perverse reversal now, because free speech was always a liberal cause. I mean, the ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, that's a liberal organization. They were defending Nazis marching in Skokie, Illinois. That, they truly believed it. Now, that's kind of gone in reverse. Now it's liberals saying we need to censor speech that's hateful, and it's conservatives saying, oh, no, we believe in free speech. And I'm like, oh my God, when did this happen? And that's one reason why I wrote this book, was just to say, hey, wait a minute now, come on, my fellow liberals. I'm kind of a classical libertarian. I'm not progressive liberal, but come on, this is our cause. The First Amendment, this is our cause. We need to own this thing like the conservatives own the Second Amendment and guns. We need to be just obsessed about this. So
what's happening here? Why does that massive shift in the last 10, 15 years?
Well, this is, debatable. Social scientists are now trying to study this a little bit, like my colleague Jonathan Haidt in his book, The Coddling of the American Mind. There's different theories about this. One is that there's kind of a culture of safetyism that arose during the crime wave of the 70s and 80s, such that by the time we got to the 90s, these kids are now parents and they're having kids and being super, super protective of them, so-called helicopter parenting. And, playgrounds with padding everywhere. Playgrounds now are designed by lawyers. It's like, what do we do not to get sued? Well, we got to, pad everything so no one has any chance of getting hurt or so on. So that kind of expands to the idea that we need to protect people from not just physical threats, but cognitive threats, verbal threats, words that are threatening. So that's one theory. The other theory is, of course, the rise of social media. And Facebook and Instagram and so on, all these, kind of instantly give you critical feedback, usually in the cancel culture mode, that causes people to be more censorious. The anonymity of social media allows you to just hammer on people just relentlessly, people you never even met. It's a little bit, the analogy I use is like, I'm in LA. So, when you're driving on the freeways, people flip each other off and so on, and curse and scream. They wouldn't do that if you were on a sidewalk, that anonymity in the car. It's a little bit like that. And I get nasty letters once in a while. Maybe once a week I get a really nasty letter. I mean, just for, curse words and just so on. And I'll occasionally write them back and say, oh gosh, I didn't mean to offend you with my column or whatever. Are you having a bad day, or are you okay? And they always write back and go, oh my God, I never thought you'd write back. I'm so sorry. I didn't really mean to come off like that. And wow. So just that kind of personal contact with somebody erases most of that kind of hateful response that people have. So that's a factor. Politically, we're more divisive. We have data on this showing that the percentage of people who identify as centrist, just sort of barely to the left of center or to the right of center, that has shrunk. And the two ends, people that self-identify as far left or far right, have both gone up. So that kind of polarization, driven in part, I think, by talk radio and all the cable shows and so on that just hammer each side, causes people to drift further apart. And therefore plug that into social media and you just get this kind of just hammering on each other. And then that makes people go, well, we need to start censoring the kind of language they're using because this is getting out of hand. No, that's not the solution, but it may be part of the cause.